Another arm of the United States government was the FSA, the Farm Security Administration, and they had a peculiar task, because in addition to the Depression, which had obviously hit farmers quite hard because suddenly the material that they were producing wasn't really as value, yet their costs for producing it were exactly the same. They were hit not only that but also by another problem, which was the Dust Bowl. And the Dust Bowl was this terrible drought that hit the American West and Southwest especially, and caused terrible economic problems for those farmers.
How are you, Nisha?
I am good. What about you?
I am good too, but there is a thing that is bothering for a couple of days.
What is that?
Poverty in Bangladesh. I have read newspaper reports and saw some reports on television, and I learned that Bangladesh has an extreme problem with poverty.
Yeah, I heard about that too. Do you know about the data or exactly number?
According to some statistic, around 5% of people are living below the line of poverty in this country.
In a population of 160 million, 5% is a huge number.
The ability to work well with people who have different opinions and values is a persistent challenge in daily work life. The problem, says science, is that most humans unconsciously favor others who are genetically similar. That doesn't just mean we like people who look like us, but also inherited traits such as enjoying reading or travel are also a big draw. So what happens when you mix up a group of people that don't necessarily all share similar behaviors and interests? Research shows that the neurotransmitter oxytocin does the opposite of what we normally experience when it's released. Instead of pouring out a flood of feel-good hormones that help us bond with our perceived opponents, being with people who are not like us causes oxytocin to incite suspicion and disdain. Leaders need to show more composure than ever before in the workplace. With the change management requirements, increased marketplace demand and intensifying competitive factors that surround us, leaders must have greater poise, agility and patience to minimize the impact of uncertainty. How leaders respond to these and other growing pressures is an indicator of their leadership preparedness, maturity and acumen. The composure of a leader is reflected in their attitude, body language and overall presence. In today's evolving business environment, it is clear that leadership is not only about elevating the performance, aptitude and development of people but more so about the ability to make people feel safe and secure. Every year millions of marine animals die worldwide because of this type of pollution. The small personal pieces of garbage, casually discarded, are often the most damaging. While some of this trash is left directly on the beach, much of it originates as street litter from coastal and inland cities where it is washed down to the sea through storm water drains and rivers. Some trash, particularly plastics, can last in the ocean for years. There are many different items which make up marine garbage, ranging from large commercial fishing nets which can entangle and maim or kill animals, to small plastic bags that can be mistaken for food and ingested by marine life. Teaching and Teacher Education is a multidisciplinary journal, committed to no single approach, discipline, methodology or paradigm. It is concerned with teaching and teacher education in general and devoted to all concerned with teaching. Teaching and teacher education recognizes that many disciplines have important contributions to make to teaching and teacher education, and the editors invite contributions from them. In the absence of any dominant paradigm, the journal welcomes varied approaches to empirical research, theoretical and conceptual analyses, and reviews of high quality. Teaching and teacher education aims to enhance theory, research, and practice in teaching and teacher education through the publication of primary research and review papers. Many European countries, as well as most members of the transatlantic NATO military alliance, have already done away with compulsory military service. Of the 28 NATO countries, 23 have full-time professional armies, and 21 of the 27 European Union nations have abolished the draft. The latest to do so is Sweden, which ended conscription on June 30. Alongside Turkey, Germany remains the only major NATO country that still requires its young men to serve in the military. Conscription also still exists in Austria, Cyprus, Estonia, Finland, Greece and Norway. At 26 months, the longest required military service in Europe is on the island of Cyprus. Denmark's conscription seems by contrast to be impractically short, at just 4 months. If you are self-publishing using a platform such as Amazon's CreateSpace or Kindle Direct Publishing, or you are traditionally published, your primary income from your book will be in the form of royalties. Royalties are a percentage of a book's sale, or a flat fee per book sold, that are paid to a book's author to compensate them for publishing and distribution rights. Royalties are typically paid by the publisher after sales are confirmed and fully paid. So there may be a lag time between a book's sale and when an author actually gets paid. That lag time could even be months. Payout periods and thresholds are determined by publishers and according to their agreements with authors. When an author gets a traditional publishing book deal, he will usually be paid in advance.
Health information management or medical records is committed to confidentiality and quality of protected health information. HIM is responsible to maintain the legal medical records for all Centra facilities except Centra Medical Group physician practices. For questions about Centra Medical Group physician practice medical records, please contact the physician practice directly. Centra's release of information is responsible for providing patients, legal guardians or authorized individuals copies of the medical record. To receive a copy of your medical record, a properly completed authorization from the patient or legal guardian is required by law. During her almost 64-year-long reign, the Queen has seen a remarkable amount of change in the world, but perhaps no change has greater affected her life than the remarkable decline of the British Empire. When Elizabeth was crowned in 1952, the Britain still had a real empire, with more than 70 overseas territories. Even then, however, it was clear that the situation could not last. India, often declared the jewel in the crown for the empire, had won its independence just 5 years before. In 1952, British troops were fighting independence movements in Egypt and Kenya. They would go on to lose both, and many others. By 1979, the British Empire was reduced to a few pockets around the world. The shrinking didn't stop, however.
Excuse me, is this seat free?
Yes.
Thanks.
My name is Mrs. Smith. It is nice to meet you.
Hi, Mrs. Smith. My name is Mr. Bean. It's nice to meet you too.
Where are you from, Mr. Bean? You sound like you not from England.
I am from Thailand. I have been visiting my family in Manchester. How about you?
Same as every day at this time on my way to work, as usual.
What do you do?
I am an English teacher. My students love learning English. How about you?
One of the things that people have said about agriculture is that on the whole it's more labor-intensive than hunting and gathering, and that's one of the reasons why people have looked to explanations which, you might say, are kind of corrosive factors that people have been forced into agriculture because they had no alternative. That is ultimately what may happen. But at the very beginning it could be that agriculture was developed because people wanted special status foods for feasting. That it was actually a social need. I mean, how much of what we do in our lives is generated by competition with others? And a lot of that is powered by desire for new things, new statuses, new whatever it might be. Respect, recognition also are important. For 4 centuries the Viking declined. The people of the Shetland Islands off the north coast of Scotland continued to sell their goods through the North European Hanseatic League. The Hanse's merchants bought shiploads of salted fish and in return the islanders got cash, grain, cloth and other goods. This lasted until the Act of Union between Scotland and England in 1707. This act prohibited the Hanse merchants from sheltering with Scotland. Consequently, Shetland went into an economic depression. The independent farmers of Shetland had to sell their land and were then obligated to pay rent, eventually becoming serfs. My hero is Marie Curie. She was a Polish physicist and chemist working in France, and she did conduct pioneering research on radioactivity. She was also the first woman who won a Nobel Prize. Marie Curie is my hero because she showed a lot of determination in following her career path and her passions. She also showed a lot of patience in working for years to receive results from her experiments. And Marie Curie, she designed and built the first mobile X-ray machines. She worked on the front lines of the First World War along with her daughter saving soldiers.